Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at the endless stars through the massive viewing window. The Eternal Dominance was the largest ship in the Zephyrian fleet, stretching over 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Its crystalline hull gleamed like a blue diamond in the starlight, beautiful and deadly at the same time. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian hegemony had ruled this part of the galaxy. No enemy had ever defeated them. No weapon had ever broken their shields. They were masters of space itself, and Kethavar was proud to be one of their greatest commanders. The Admiral's skin was pale blue, almost translucent, with silver veins that glowed softly beneath the surface. His eyes were large and completely black, perfect for seeing in the dim light of his homeworld. Like all Zephyrians, he believed his species was superior to every other form of life in the galaxy. Admiral, called his second-in-command, Officer Zethnai, approaching with a data tablet in her long, thin fingers. "We have received new orders from the High Council." Kethavar turned, his robes flowing around him like liquid starlight. "What do they want now? Another rebellion to crush? Another planet to claim?" Zethnai's expression was amused. "Something much simpler, sir. There is a new species expanding from the outer rim. They call themselves humans. The High Council wants us to deal with them." The Admiral laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Humans? Another primitive species thinks it can challenge us? How many ships do they have?" "Intelligence reports suggest they have perhaps 50 vessels, sir. All using basic metal construction and kinetic weapons. No energy shields, no quantum technology. They are barely more advanced than the cave dwellers we found on Proxima 7. Kethavar waved his hand dismissively. 50 ships? We have destroyed entire civilizations with 1,000 times that number. This will be over before it begins." He walked to his command chair, settling into the soft cushions that adjusted perfectly to his body. Around him the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency. His crew worked at stations made of the same blue crystal as the ship's hull, their fingers dancing over controls that responded to thought as much as touch. The Eternal Dominance was not alone. Around it floated 200 other ships of the hegemony fleet. Some were massive dreadnoughts like his own. Others were sleek destroyers that could move faster than light itself. Each one was armed with energy weapons that could tear apart planets and shields that had never been broken. "Tell me about these humans," Kethavar said, leaning back in his chair. "What makes them think they can survive contact with us?" Zethnai consulted her tablet. "They seem to be expanding rapidly, sir. In just a few centuries, they have spread to dozens of star systems. They build large colony ships and send families to settle new worlds." Families. The Admiral was genuinely surprised. "They bring their young with them? How foolish. When we expand, we send military forces first to secure the territory." "Yes, sir. It appears they are not a warrior species. Our scouts report they have only a small military force. Most of their ships are designed for exploration and trade, not war." Kethavar shook his head in amazement. How had such a weak species managed to spread so far? It made no sense to him. In his experience, only the strong survived in the galaxy. Only species with powerful militaries and advanced technology could claim territory and hold it against others. "What about their technology?" he asked. "Surely they must have something of value, or the High Council would not bother with them." "Their technology is extremely primitive, sir. They use chemical rockets to leave their planets. Their fastest ships can barely reach half the speed of light. They communicate using radio waves and primitive quantum entanglement." The Admiral almost felt sorry for them. It was like watching children play with wooden swords while armies marched toward them with energy weapons. These humans had no idea what was coming. "Their weapons are the most amusing part," Zethnai continued. "They fire solid projectiles using chemical explosives. Some of their larger ships have what they call railguns that use magnetic fields to accelerate metal slugs. It is the same technology we abandoned 5,000 years ago." Kethavar's bridge crew began to laugh. The sound filled the air like silver bells ringing. Solid projectiles? Against Zephyrian shields? It was like trying to fight a starship with rocks and sticks. "How long will it take us to reach their territory?" the Admiral asked. "At full speed, perhaps 10 standard days, sir. Shall I give the order to prepare the fleet?" Kethavar considered this. 10 days to travel across half the galaxy and destroy an entire species. It seemed almost too easy. He had been hoping for a real challenge, something to test his skills and the abilities of his fleet. These humans sounded like they would provide no sport at all. "Yes, give the order. But tell the fleet to move slowly. Let these humans see us coming. Perhaps some of them will surrender without a fight. And if they do surrender, sir, the Admiral's expression grew cold. The High Council's orders were clear. This species is to be eliminated completely. They have expanded too far into territory that belongs to us. We cannot allow any of them to survive and spread further. Seth and I nodded and began transmitting orders to the rest of the fleet. Around the Eternal Dominance, 200 ships began to turn toward human space. Their engines blazed with blue fire as they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. Kethvar stood and walked back to the viewing window. Soon, he would add another victory to his long record of success. Another species would fall before the might of the hegemony. These humans would learn what countless others had learned before them, that the Zephyrians were the masters of this galaxy. He thought about the human families on their colony ships, completely unaware that death was racing toward them at faster-than-light speed. They probably thought they were safe in their little bubble of space, exploring and expanding like children playing in a garden. They had no idea that gods walked among the stars, and that they had just attracted the attention of the most powerful gods of all. The Admiral smiled as his fleet jumped into hyperspace, beginning their journey toward human territory. This would be the shortest war in hegemony history. Captain Elena Rodriguez checked her instruments one more time as the New Horizons approached the Kepler 442 system. The massive colony ship carried 3,000 souls, families, scientists, engineers, and farmers all seeking a new life among the stars. After 18 months in space, they were finally approaching their destination. Elena had been chosen to lead this mission because of her experience with first contact situations. She had met 17 different alien species during her career, and every encounter had ended peacefully. Humans had a gift for diplomacy, she believed. They could find common ground with anyone. Captain, called her communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen. I'm picking up something unusual on long-range sensors. Elena moved to Sarah's station, studying the displays. 3 objects were moving toward them at incredible speed, much faster than any human ship could travel. The sensor readings showed they were massive, at least twice the size of the New Horizons. Are they responding to our standard greeting signals? Elena asked. Sarah shook her head. No response to any of our communications. But Captain, their technology is unlike anything in our databases. These ships are using some kind of energy propulsion system we've never seen before. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was what every explorer dreamed of, contact with a truly advanced civilization. If these aliens were friendly, they might share technology that could revolutionize human space travel. Continue broadcasting our peaceful intentions, she ordered. Use the universal mathematics sequence in the cultural exchange package. Let them know we come in peace. The alien ships were getting closer now, and the New Horizons sensors were picking up more details. The vessels were beautiful, made of some kind of blue crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. They moved with perfect coordination like dancers performing an ancient ritual. Captain, called her tactical officer, Commander James Park. Those ships are armed. I'm reading massive energy signatures from what appear to be weapon systems. Elena nodded calmly. Most advanced civilizations had powerful weapons. It didn't necessarily mean they were hostile. Humans carried weapons too, even on colony ships like this one. It was simply good sense in a dangerous galaxy. Keep broadcasting our peaceful messages, she said, and prepare a gift package. Samples of human art, music, and literature. We want to show them who we are. The alien ships had slowed down now and were approaching in a triangular formation. Elena could see them clearly through the main viewing screen. 3 crystalline vessels that looked more like works of art than warships. They were incredibly graceful, moving through space like dolphins swimming through water. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the human colony ship New Horizons, she broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars. We offer gifts of culture and science in the spirit of cooperation between our peoples. For several minutes there was no response. The alien ships continued to approach, their blue hulls growing larger on the screen. Elena could see intricate patterns carved into their surfaces, designs that spoke of a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity. Then, finally, a response came. The voice was strange, musical like wind chimes, but the translation computers were able to process it into English. Primitive creatures, the voice said, cold and dismissive. You have entered territory that belongs to the Zephyrian hegemony. Your species is not welcome here. Elena felt her heart sink, but she tried again. We had no knowledge of your territorial claims. We are simply seeking a new home for our people. Perhaps we can find a solution that benefits both our species. The alien voice laughed, a sound like breaking glass. There is only one solution, human. Your species must be eliminated before you spread further into our domain. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. Eliminated? We've done nothing wrong. We're peaceful explorers, not conquerors. Surely we can silence, the alien commanded. The High Council has decided. Your species is a threat to galactic order. All humans must die. Elena's blood ran cold. Around her, the bridge crew looked at their instruments in shock and fear. 3,000 innocent people were about to die for the crime of seeking a new home among the stars. Red alert, Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the terror in her heart. All hands to emergency stations. Raise shields and prepare for... The first energy beam struck before she could finish the sentence. The New Horizons shuddered as its simple shields collapsed instantly under the alien weapon's power. Elena was thrown from her feet as explosions rocked the ship. Shields down. James shouted over the noise. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're losing atmosphere fast. Elena pulled herself up and ran to the communications console. If they were going to die, she had to warn Earth. Other humans had to know what was coming. The second energy beam tore through the ship's midsection, cutting through steel and ceramic like a hot knife through butter. The lights went out, replaced by the hellish red glow of emergency power. Screams echoed through the corridors as families were torn apart by the alien weapons. Sarah, Elena called to her communications officer, who was bleeding from a head wound. Can you get a message to Earth? Sarah's fingers flew over her controls, blood dripping onto the console. I'm trying, Captain. The communication array is damaged, but I might be able to get something through. The third beam struck the engine section. Elena felt the deck tilting beneath her feet as the ship began to break apart. Through the viewing screen, she could see the alien vessels circling like sharks, their beautiful blue hulls now seeming evil and cold. Message ready? Sarah gasped. What do you want me to tell them? Elena thought of her daughter Maria, safe back on Earth, studying to become a doctor. She thought of all the other humans who didn't know that death was coming for them from the stars. Tell them. Elena's voice broke as another explosion shook the ship. Tell them we tried to make peace. Tell them these aliens gave us no chance, no mercy. Tell them to be ready. Sarah's finger pressed the transmission button just as the fourth energy beam struck the bridge. The last thing Elena saw was the beautiful blue light of alien weapons, coming to end 3,000 human lives in the cold darkness of space. The New Horizons broke apart completely, its pieces drifting away into the void. The Zephyrian ships watched for a few minutes to make sure there were no survivors, then turned and headed deeper into human space. Behind them, an automated probe that had been launched from the dying colony ship continued to transmit. It carried recordings of the entire encounter, humanity's first meeting with the Zephyrian hegemony, and the beginning of a war that would determine the fate of both species. The message traveled through space at the speed of light, racing toward Earth with news that would change everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy, and their new neighbors wanted them dead. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the recording for the 100th time, her jaw clenched tight with barely controlled rage. On the screen, the New Horizons broke apart under alien weapons fire. 3,000 innocent lives snuffed out without warning or mercy. The transmission from Captain Rodriguez played again. Tell them we tried to make peace. Tell them these aliens gave us no chance. Sarah had known Elena Rodriguez personally. They had served together on the exploration vessel Magellan 15 years ago, back when humanity's biggest worry was finding enough resources to fuel their expansion. Now Elena was dead, along with everyone else on that colony ship, murdered by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. Admiral, called Captain Marcus Webb, entering the command center of Luna Station. The Retribution is ready for departure. Sarah turned to face him. Webb was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes, one of humanity's best military commanders. He had volunteered for this mission immediately after seeing the recordings from Kepler 442. Like Sarah, he understood what was at stake. Are you sure about the stealth systems? Sarah asked. We only get one chance at this. Webb nodded confidently. The new quantum field generators are working perfectly. As long as we don't get too close to any massive gravity sources, we'll be completely invisible to their sensors. Sarah walked to the viewing window, looking out at humanity's newest and most advanced warship. The Retribution didn't look like much compared to the beautiful alien vessels in the recordings. It was purely functional, a long, dark hull covered in sensor arrays and weapon systems. But it represented something the aliens hadn't expected: human innovation born from desperation. "Tell me about the weapons," Sarah said. Webb joined her at the window, his voice filled with quiet pride. 6 antimatter torpedoes, each with enough power to crack a moon. The main railgun can accelerate tungsten rods to 15% of light speed. We also have electromagnetic pulse mines and a full complement of nuclear missiles. Will it be enough against their shields? Honestly, we don't know. But our scientists think their energy-based defense systems might not be designed to stop solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Sarah nodded. It was a theory based on limited data, but it was all they had. The alien ships used energy weapons and energy shields. Perhaps they had forgotten how to defend against simple kinetic attacks. "What about their fleet movements?" she asked. Webb consulted his tablet. "Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking them. They're moving through human space systematically, destroying every colony they find. No attempts at communication, no warnings. They're exterminating us system by system." The numbers were horrifying. In just 3 weeks, 7 human colonies had been wiped out completely. Nearly 50,000 people dead, with more dying every day. The aliens moved with casual efficiency, as if they were pruning weeds from a garden. "They're not even trying to hide their movements," Webb continued. "They broadcast their positions openly, maintain predictable patrol routes. It's like they can't imagine anyone being able to threaten them." Sarah saw the opportunity immediately. Arrogance. They've been the dominant species for so long, they've forgotten what real warfare looks like. "That's what we're counting on," Webb agreed. "The Retribution has enough supplies for a 6-month mission. We're going to slip into their territory, study their movements, and hit them where they least expect it." Sarah thought about the families dying in human space while she and Webb talked strategy. Every minute they delayed meant more innocent lives lost. But rushing in without proper preparation would accomplish nothing except getting the Retribution destroyed. "There's something else," Webb said quietly. "Intelligence reports suggest they have a command ship, something called the Eternal Dominance. If we can take out their leadership, it might give our colonies time to evacuate." Sarah turned to study the man who would captain humanity's revenge mission. "You understand this is likely a one-way trip. Even if you succeed, getting home will be nearly impossible." Webb's expression was grim but determined. "Admiral, I've read every report from the destroyed colonies. I've seen what these creatures do to human children. Getting home is not my primary concern." Sarah understood. She felt the same burning desire for justice, the same need to make the aliens pay for their crimes. But she was needed here, coordinating humanity's desperate defense efforts. Webb would carry their hopes into the darkness between stars. "Your crew?" she asked. "All volunteers?" "Every person on that ship lost someone at Kepler 442, or the other attacks. We're not going out there as explorers or diplomats. We're going as instruments of human vengeance." The Retribution waited silently in its dock, its hull painted flat black to absorb light and sensor beams. It looked like a predator crouched in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Human engineers had worked around the clock to build it, driven by grief and determination. "The stealth field will hide us from their sensors," Webb explained. "But we'll still need to be careful. We're planning to use the gravity wells of stars and gas giants to mask our approach. The aliens seem to avoid the inner systems of stars. They prefer the clean vacuum of deep space." Sarah smiled grimly. Another advantage born from human stubbornness. While the aliens stayed in the comfortable emptiness between worlds, humans had learned to dive deep into gravity wells, to skim the surfaces of stars and dance through asteroid fields. They were used to operating in dangerous environments. "How long until you reach their territory?" Sarah asked. 3 weeks to cross the neutral zone, assuming we don't run into any patrols. After that we hunt." Sarah extended her hand and Webb shook it firmly. "Bring me their head, Marcus. Show them that humanity isn't some helpless species to be slaughtered without consequence." Webb saluted sharply. "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral Kethvar is going to learn that humans don't die quietly." As Webb left to board his ship, Sarah returned to watching the recordings from the destroyed colonies. Each one showed the same pattern: alien ships appearing without warning, energy weapons tearing through human defenses like they were made of paper, entire populations wiped out in minutes. But this time would be different. This time the aliens would face something they had never encountered before. A human warship built for one purpose, crewed by people who had nothing left to lose, carrying weapons designed by a species that had spent its entire history finding new ways to kill its enemies. The retribution would teach the Zephyrian hegemony that humanity was not defenseless prey. They were predators too, and when cornered, predators fought back. Outside the viewing window, the dark ship began to move, its engines glowing like dying stars. Soon it would vanish into the quantum field that made it invisible, becoming a ghost in the void between worlds. The aliens thought they were hunting helpless humans. They were about to discover they had become the hunted. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, savoring the taste of victory wine from his homeworld. Around him, the Nexus system sparkled with the lights of his fleet. 200 ships arranged in perfect formation, celebrating another successful cleansing operation. Another human colony destroyed, reported Officer Zethni, her voice filled with satisfaction. The planet Kepler 452b has been completely sterilized. All 23,000 humans eliminated. Kethvar nodded approvingly. The campaign was proceeding exactly as planned. In just 1 month, his fleet had wiped out 12 human settlements. The aliens barely fought back. Their primitive weapons couldn't even scratch Zephyrian shields. It was like stepping on insects. "Any word from our advanced scouts?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, sir. They have located 3 more human colonies in the Outer Rim. The largest has nearly 50,000 inhabitants. Shall we proceed there next?" Kethvar waved his hand casually. "In due time. Let the fleet enjoy this victory first. We have earned a moment of celebration." Around the flagship, Zephyrian crews were indeed celebrating. Many had brought out bottles of their finest liquors, sharing them with friends as they watched the recordings of human cities burning. To them, this wasn't really a war, it was pest control. No different from spraying insects in a garden. The Admiral walked to his favorite spot by the viewing window, gazing out at the beautiful spiral of the Nexus system's primary star. The gravity well here was perfect for hiding a fleet, and the stellar radiation would mask any sensor readings from human ships. Not that there were any human ships left to worry about. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "shall I maintain standard patrol formation?" Kethvar laughed, the sound like silver bells in a gentle wind. "Standard formation? Against these humans? Deploy the ships for ceremony, not combat. Let them spread out so everyone can enjoy the view." The Zephyrian vessels began to spread across the system, each one positioning itself for optimal viewing of the star's corona. Discipline relaxed as crews focused on their celebrations rather than sensor readings. Why worry about threats when no threat existed? Captain Marcus Webb watched the alien fleet through the Retribution's passive sensors, hardly believing what he was seeing. The enemy ships were scattered across millions of kilometers, their crews obviously drunk on victory and alien wine. They weren't even running proper sensor sweeps. "They're making this almost too easy," whispered his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park. "It's like they want to be ambushed." Webb studied the formation carefully. The flagship was in the center, surrounded by a dozen escort vessels. The rest of the fleet was spread out in loose groups, their crews obviously more interested in celebrating than fighting. "How long have we been watching them?" Webb asked. 6 hours, sir. They haven't changed position or altered their sensor patterns once. They're completely relaxed." Webb felt a cold smile cross his face. These aliens had grown soft in their dominance. They had forgotten the first rule of warfare. Never assume your enemy is helpless because that's when your enemy kills you. "Status of the stealth field?" "Holding steady, sir. As long as we stay on the far side of the star, they can't detect us." The Retribution hung in space like a dark predator, its hull absorbing the radiation from the system's star. For 3 weeks, Webb and his crew had studied Zephyrian fleet movements, learning their patterns and weaknesses. Now they had found the perfect target, the command ship that had ordered the destruction of human colonies. "Weapons status?" Webb asked. Lieutenant Commander Park checked her displays. "All antimatter torpedoes loaded and ready. Railgun charged and locked onto the flagship. EMP mines deployed along their likely escape routes." Webb nodded. They had positioned the mines carefully over the past few hours, using the star's gravity to hide their movement. When the shooting started, any alien ship trying to flee would run straight into electromagnetic pulses that would fry their delicate crystalline electronics. "Sir," called his communications officer, "I'm picking up transmissions from the flagship. They're laughing about the humans they killed." Webb's jaw tightened. Through the translation computers, he could hear alien voices discussing human deaths like they were talking about a sporting event. They joked about the terror in human children's eyes, about the way human ships broke apart under their weapons. "They think this is funny," Webb said quietly. "Let's see how funny they find this." He walked to his command chair, settling into the worn cushions. Around him, his crew prepared for humanity's first real strike against the Zephyrian hegemony. Every person on the bridge had lost someone to alien weapons. Every face showed the same cold determination. "Take us in," Webb ordered. "Silent approach directly behind the flagship. Use the star's gravity to mask our acceleration." The Retribution began to move, its engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. Webb watched the distance counter tick down as they approached the alien fleet. 500 kilometers. 400. 300. Still no reaction from the enemy. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they couldn't imagine a threat approaching their most powerful ship. 200 kilometers, reported his navigator. "We're almost in optimal firing position." Webb could see the flagship clearly now through the viewing screen. The Eternal Dominance was magnificent in its alien beauty. A crystal sculpture 3 kilometers long, glowing with soft blue light. It looked more like a temple than a warship. 100 kilometers, the navigator called. "We're in the perfect position, sir." Webb stood up, his hand moving to the firing controls. In a few seconds, the balance of power in this war was going to change forever. The aliens thought humans were defenseless prey. They were about to learn otherwise. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "the flagship is directly ahead. All weapons locked on target." Webb thought about Captain Elena Rodriguez, dying in the wreckage of the New Horizons. He thought about the 50,000 humans murdered at the colonies. He thought about every human child who would never grow up because of alien weapons. "This is for the New Horizons," Webb said quietly. Then, louder, his voice carrying across the bridge, "Fire everything." The Retribution erupted in controlled violence. 6 antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the alien flagship, their warheads containing enough energy to vaporize small moons. Behind them came a steady stream of tungsten rods from the railgun. Each projectile accelerated to 15% of light speed. Admiral Keithvar was reaching for another cup of victory wine when his ship's emergency alarms began screaming. He turned toward his tactical officer, confusion replacing the pleasant haze of alcohol. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Incoming weapons fire," the officer shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "Multiple projectiles, high-energy signatures, impact in 15 seconds. Keithvar stared at the tactical display in shock. Where had these weapons come from? There were no human ships in the system. His sensors showed nothing but empty space. "Raise shields," he commanded. "Return fire." But it was already too late. The first antimatter torpedo struck the Eternal Dominance's shield array, and the supposedly impenetrable barriers collapsed like soap bubbles. The tungsten rods followed, punching through the crystalline hull like bullets through glass. For the first time in 3,000 years, Zephyrian blood stained the corridors of their own flagship. Admiral Keithvar pulled himself up from the deck of his bridge, blue blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. Around him, the Eternal Dominance was dying. Emergency lights flickered through smoke and sparks as human weapons continued to tear through his flagship's hull. "Report," he shouted over the noise of grinding metal and failing systems. "Shields completely down," his tactical officer called back, struggling with damaged controls. "Hull breaches on 70% of all decks. We've lost main power and most of our weapon systems." Keithvar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His escort ships were dying around him, their beautiful crystalline hulls cracking apart under the relentless barrage of solid projectiles. These weren't energy weapons that could be deflected or absorbed. They were chunks of metal moving at impossible speeds, and nothing in the Zephyrian arsenal could stop them. "Where are these weapons coming from?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors detect no enemy ships, but the projectiles are definitely artificial. Someone is firing at us, but we cannot see them." Through the main viewing screen, Keithvar watched one of his destroyer escorts break completely in half. The crew inside were exposed to vacuum. their bodies freezing instantly in the cold darkness of space. He had seen such things happen to enemy species countless times, but never to his own people. "Sir," called his communications officer, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's coming from the humans." Kethvar's blood ran cold. "Impossible. We destroyed all human ships in this sector. The transmission is definitely human, sir. Audio only." "Put it through," Kethvar ordered. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented English that the translation computers struggled to process. "Admiral Kethvar of the Eternal Dominance. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the human battleship Retribution. Do you remember the colony ship New Horizons? Do you remember Captain Elena Rodriguez?" Kethvar felt his legs weaken. The New Horizons had been one of the first human ships his fleet had destroyed. A simple colony vessel with no weapons and no shields. He had barely noticed its destruction among all the others. "You murdered 3,000 innocent people," the human voice continued, cold as the void between stars. "You gave them no chance to surrender, no opportunity to flee. You killed them because you believed they were beneath your notice." Around the bridge, Kethvar's crew listened in stunned silence. They had never heard an enemy speak to their admiral with such authority, such confidence. This human was not begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. He was pronouncing judgment. "Today you learn that humans are not helpless prey," Webb's voice declared. "Today you discover that we can kill you just as easily as you killed us. The difference is we give you a choice." The weapons fire stopped suddenly. The Eternal Dominance drifted in space, its hull riddled with holes but still intact. Around it, half the Zephyrian fleet was either destroyed or crippled. The survivors waited in terrible silence for the humans' next words. "Surrender now," Webb commanded, "and we will allow your crews to evacuate to life pods. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every ship in this system." Kethvar's hands shook as he gripped his command chair. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian dominance, no enemy had ever offered terms to them. They were the ones who decided whether other species lived or died. The very idea of surrendering to primitives was unthinkable. "Admiral," his tactical officer whispered, "what are your orders?" Kethvar looked around his ruined bridge. His crew was bleeding, his ship was dying, and somewhere in the darkness a human warship waited like a patient predator. Half his fleet was already gone, destroyed by weapons they couldn't even see coming. But he was Zephyrian. He was one of the master race ruler of the galaxy. He could not surrender to inferior beings, no matter how desperate the situation became. "All remaining ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "target the source of those transmissions. Find that human ship and destroy it." The surviving Zephyrian vessels began to move, their energy weapons charging for a final desperate attack. But they were firing blindly, their sensors unable to penetrate the Retribution's stealth field. Their beautiful energy beams lanced out into empty space, hitting nothing but vacuum and starlight. Webb's voice returned, sadder now. "You have chosen death over wisdom. So be it." The Retribution revealed itself finally, dropping its stealth field as it unleashed everything it had. The human warship appeared like a dark angel of vengeance, its hull scarred but unbroken, its weapons blazing with righteous fury. Antimatter torpedoes streaked toward the remaining Zephyrian ships, while tungsten rods punched through their hulls like spears through paper. One by one, the proud vessels of the hegemony died in the cold embrace of space. Kethvar watched his fleet die around him, and for the first time in his long life, he felt genuine fear. These humans fought with a savage efficiency that his people had forgotten. They used weapons his species had abandoned millennia ago, but they used them with deadly precision. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the humans are hailing us again." "Put it through," Kethvar whispered. Webb's voice was calm now, almost gentle. "Admiral, your fleet is destroyed. Your ship is dying. Your crew is dead or dying. This is what you brought to human colonies. This is what you gave to innocent families." Kethvar said nothing. What could he say? His arrogance had led his people into disaster. "But unlike you," Webb continued, "we remember mercy. Evacuate your surviving crew to life pods. We will allow them to be rescued. You have 10 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar alone with the ruins of his pride. Around him, his bridge crew looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? His weapons were destroyed, his shields were down, and his fleet was scattered debris. "Sir?" his tactical officer asked quietly. Kethvar closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 3 millennia of Zephyrian supremacy crashing down around him. They had believed themselves to be gods among insects. They had thought themselves untouchable. They had been wrong. "Give the order," he said finally. "Abandon ship." As his crew evacuated to life pods, Kethavar remained on his bridge, staring out at the wreckage of his fleet. In the distance, the human ship Retribution waited like a patient executioner, its weapons trained on his flagship. The Admiral had learned too late that humans were not the helpless prey his people had thought them to be. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors, fighters, and when cornered, they became killers with a coldly efficient dedication to destruction. The Eternal Dominance died quietly, its crystalline hull finally surrendering to the damage inflicted by human weapons. As it broke apart, Kethavar's life pod drifted away from the wreckage, carrying the broken Admiral toward an uncertain future. Behind him, the Retribution had already vanished back into the darkness between stars, its mission complete. The galaxy would soon know that humanity had struck back, that the untouchable Zephyrian hegemony could bleed and die like any other species. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted forever. The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity had announced to the galaxy that they would not go quietly into extinction. They would fight, and they would make their enemies pay for every human life taken. The reckoning had begun.